Hey. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. It is 1 o'clock and it's time for our Wealth Secrets, Wealth Strategies for First Generation Investors. I'm going to give folks just a few minutes to join us on LinkedIn as well as in Zoom. So come on in here. I'm excited to share this with you. So let's see. Okay, so we have about 100 and so registered for this today. Excited, excited, excited. Again, let me give folks just a few minutes. I know many of you are at work, so you may not have as much flexibility. But I'm going to make this brief. We should be off of the presentation, should go for a good 35, 40 minutes, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. So let's get this party started. Oh, Latara, it's good to see you. I want to give folks just a few minutes to get in here. Uh, Good afternoon, busy lady. Yeah, we've got folks. Hey, I appreciate that. Yeah, so we've got people streaming on LinkedIn and some in the Zoom room, but to be respectful of folks' time, I'm going to get right into the presentation. So, wealth secrets for first generation high earning women. So, what do you think I'm going to talk about? What am I talking about today? Any guesses, Latara? And then let me get on LinkedIn as well. Any guesses?
Generational wealth, not just money.
Money?
Generational wealth, not just
But
money.
really how to keep more of it, right? Like
Mhm.
one of the things that I have found, and the reason my work is with first generation is because I'm a first generation high earner, right? Like I was in the first in my family to, go to college, six figures, go into senior management in a corporate role. And I was just so what do I want to, I don't want to call it ill prepared, but I do want to say that I felt like I had all this formal education. How come I didn't learn a lot of the things that I learned in the investments arena in my formal education? And so that's what I've been on this journey. My most recent book is Wealth Secrets, because that's what they are, right? Like we don't learn this in our formal education. So just a little bit about myself, financial expert, author. I've written four books, Confident Investing, A Wealth Building Guide for Women, but I'll get into that a little later. So in the chat, on LinkedIn as well, well, I know what you do. And how is that new role going for you, Latara? Good?
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I see you are fundraising for the girls as well, and I'll make sure that I contribute to that. But yeah, so, and where are you from, Latara? Are you from Baltimore?
So I live in Prince George's County in Bowie.
Okay.
Mhm.
Are you from Prince George's County
N-
or?
No, not at all. I've been here about 30 years. My family was military, so I was born in Tennessee. We traveled, and in military families, it's where you've been the longest. So I was in Hawaii for about
So
a
was
little over a decade. And then my dad got stationed at Walter Reed, and that's how we landed in DC.
That's funny. So was I, but my father wasn't in the military. He worked for United Airlines. So
Okay.
I was in Honolulu for about 4 years, but
Okay.
I had to get off that island. Too
Yeah,
much fun, right?
it was awesome.
So just in the chat as well on LinkedIn, what did you hope to learn by attending this event? Do you want to learn the secrets?
I do. I've been meaning to connect. I made the time, because I know that we've been trying to connect, and it's certainly something that as I'm working with women in my empowerment groups as well as the youth, I really would love to hear more about your work and see what we can do to make sure that more um, women and girls are prepared for wealth building.
Absolutely. I mean, the earlier we can get to them, the more success they'll have. So stay until the end because I'm giving away a gift. But Latara, what is your highest monthly expense?
The mortgage. Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that because I think you're going to be surprised. So I want to talk a little bit about who this webinar is for. The overachiever, high educational attainment, checked all the boxes, college career management track. I know that a little bit about you and what you've been able to accomplish. Typically sorority, alumni association, or some industry rock star. And what I found is overachiever can oftentimes be conservative, but also be in the highest tax bracket and not really realize the implications of that. You could be a corporate trailblazer, sort of, I guess I can relate to that. First generation postgraduate, you could have a BA, an MD, a MBA, a JD, all of the above. You could be made it to senior manager, director, partner. Sometimes what do I want to say? That drive to get those degrees got several $100,000 in student loans, I found. So, and retirement saving is low relative to earnings, and in some cases a negative net worth, and are in the highest tax bracket. So these are just archetypes of the women in WealthyU who I've noticed the insight that I've gotten from them. And then you could be a late bloomer. I left the corporate fast track to start a family, and then decided to stay home. But I did a lot of consulting. And in some cases, when you leave an employer, you use your retirement savings during your work absence, and in some cases it's low inadequate retirement savings, and this really is a trend. Now we see a lot of women leaving the workforce to be entrepreneurs, sometimes consulting as a solopreneur, trying to create that financial security as a business owner. I found that many women, and this is interesting because I was just having this conversation with a friend, a bad cultural fit, right? So went into a lot of different roles, got there, they paid a great salary, but now I want to be able to chart my own path. And typically, what I find is a lot of people who leave the corporate workforce still have their old employer plan sitting at their prior employer, and they have no clue what to do next. But the truth is that what I've discovered is that we were given the wrong blueprint. And how did I discover that? I discovered that because, my mom, and I'm sure your mom, that's my mom's graduation picture on the left, and that's me on the right, right? I never knew how much I resembled my mother until I put these two pictures together. But what I would say is that my mother grew up, she was the daughter of a sharecropper, and she dreamed of really having her family do better. And so as the youngest of five, by the time they got to me, private high school, college, all the things. She poured everything into me, wanting me to live that American dream. But what I discovered was that my mother had done as much as she could in terms of that blueprint that she had given me, but it was the wrong blueprint. She gave me the earner mindset. And that earner mindset said, girl, make as much money as you can, get to that six figures, buy the big house. But what I didn't, what I discovered when I got into the high net worth investment arena is that they have an owner mindset, not an earner mindset. And that's really what the gist of this is the first secret in the book, and the most important thing that first generation high earners have to understand is it's not enough to earn the income. You've got to turn that income into wealth. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. So how did I discover this? Well, I kind of fell into a role at Fidelity Investment. I had a really fast trajectory, great sponsors and mentors, and it had me working with high net worth individuals. And what I began to understand is that they had a different blueprint. And in many cases, what I also began to understand is that the knowledge they received was inherited, meaning it had been passed down from generation to generation. But if your parents never invested, and if your parents never had any exposure to high net worth strategies, you won't either. And so I had like this eureka moment. It's like, man, I need to tell everybody about this. And so I went on this journey. And what I also found was that what high net worth individuals understand is that it's not how much money you make, it's how much you keep. Right. So if you look at, you've heard Warren Buffett say his daughter had not his daughter, his secretary paid more in tax bracket than he did. And so look at these tax rates. So what do they, and we have a 24% tax rate for most Americans. So, I mean, for every 100,000, you're basically giving 25,000 back to the government, right? And so that's what I begin to understand is that the wealthy have a whole different strategy about, and it's around keeping more of what they own, right? More of what they earn. And they do that with tax advantage strategies, which is what I'm going to share with you today. Okay. You interested in learning how Bill Gates and all these people pay less in taxes? Well, I went on this journey. This is my first corporate pick, right, with Fidelity. And I left Fidelity and I decided that I got to get this information out to people. So first thing I did was I started a radio show. Kathy Hughes gave me my first opportunity, WOL in DC. Then I wrote my first book, Confident Investing, which was published by Simon & Schuster. And I thought, surely if I put this information in a book, then I toured with Bishop Jakes. And, we're in stadiums of, 40,000 or more. And I'm thinking that's the headline for my introduction for God's Leading Ladies. So long story short, I go on this journey. I write my next book, A Purse of Your Own, An Easy Guide to Investing for Women. And in that book, I thought I could just get purse groups together in the last chapter and women could learn on their own. And here's a picture of my first purse group. I don't know if you know, that's Kelly Lynn and who else is in there? Annette Stenhouse, but a lot of these women were in media. And we started 1,400 groups and most of them faltered. And so as you can imagine, I'm putting my heart and soul into this. This is me being interviewed by Kate Baldwin in CNN. And so we start this Power of the Purse campaign. Nothing worked until I launched WealthyU. And what I began to understand, actually my son, it was his idea. I had created a curriculum for university. And he said, Ma, why don't you use that curriculum and then you're known as America's wealth coach, people need personal attention, right? And so since then, I've helped thousands of women apply the concepts that I'm going to share with you today. But, my first thing is, will this work, right? Like, will this actually work? And so through that trial and error, we created this legacy wealth blueprint. And this is what the journey that women in WealthyU go through, and to make the shift from earner to owner. And I'll talk about this a little later. But I had to prove to myself that that I could, if women got the right information, that they could accelerate their financial growth and apply these same strategies that the wealthy could, right? So it's not a function of how much money you make. It's a function of how much insight you have in the strategy. So this is Belinda. She was 20 years into her career and was not on track with her retirement savings. Her personal rate of return in her portfolio was less than 5%. She delegated her investments to an advisor without understanding his recommendation. And her advisor had put most of the money in a high fee annuity. She had a sense that something was wrong, but she wasn't sure how to address the issue. And so after joining WealthyU, she learned how to analyze her portfolio and increased her rate of return. She achieved 7 figures in her retirement savings. She's now on track to do at multiple 7 figures. She established a brokerage account and built an investment portfolio. So the other thing that's important is that you not just look at your 401k, but you invest outside of your 401k. And that's one of the things you learn. She started implementing some of the tax advantage strategies, established a backdoor IRA, and created an estate plan. And so one morning, I love getting this text. I woke up and I got this text, and it said, "Deborah, I learned last night I've become one of those with a 7-figure retirement account. I cannot thank you enough. If only I had taken a class from you sooner, who knows what could happen." But what this proved to me was that we had a blueprint, that if we were able to, and that with the right information, regardless of whether you've had any exposure to investing, that once you get access to these strategies, that you really, really, really can implement. So what are these strategies? Well, we focus on teaching first-generation investors how to turn their income into wealth because they're unique. They're unique in that they haven't had any exposure. Typically, they're risk averse, because if you don't have knowledge, guess what? You're gonna be scared, right? Like a lot of women are playing not to lose rather than playing to win, and that's a direct correlation between knowledge. So what happens is Belinda was very, very conservative. But now she's, as you can imagine, in order to get to 7 figures, multiple 7 figures, you've got to become somewhat more aggressive. It's not how much money you make, right? It's the return on the investment. So that's what I have. Belinda is one of the stories in my most recent book, Wealth Secrets. But over and over and over, I share there's 7 main wealth secrets. And when you apply them, man, you just accelerate your financial growth. So of course, I don't have time to go into all 7 secrets today, but I really want to stay on this earner to owner, because this is the most fundamental secret of all. And it really is, once you shift from that earner to owner mindset, you begin to keep more of your earnings. You begin to turn more of your income into assets. And then you see your net worth grow, because one of the most important things to understand is it's not a function of how much money you make, right? Like how you need to measure your financial success is your net worth increasing? And when you begin to make decisions around is your net worth increasing, you're going to make different decisions. So let me just give you an example of this. Basically, this is a chart. And I might as well confess, I love numbers, right? Rather than tell you, I want to show you. So basically, this shows the percent of total assets and liabilities held by the wealthiest 1%. Then it's the next 9%, which is sort of the middle class, and then the bottom 90%. So if we look at where the wealthy invest their money, it's in business equity. And sometimes that's business equity might not be their own business. It could be that they're investing in other people's businesses, right? Through hedge funds, through early stage investing, through hedge funds, early stage investings, and I don't know, I lost my thought there. Okay, but the bottom line is you don't have to manage a business, right? You can get wealthy from other people managing a business. If you look at Peter Thiel, Dan Schulman, Reid Hoffman, right? Peter Thiel, PayPal. Dan Schulman, PayPal. Reid Hoffman, PayPal. That's where they were early investors in PayPal. And that really was the liquidity event that gave them the cash that they needed. And so a lot of times, there are ways that you can get involved in early stage investing. You just have to know how to get access, right? So 63% there. Financial securities. 55% financial securities. So what are financial securities? Treasuries, bonds, assets, stocks and mutual funds. 50% of their wealth is held in that. Versus, this is what I didn't show you though. The bottom, right? 6%, 6%, 9%. One of the other ways that the wealthy make sure that they keep their money is it's held in a trust so that it can pass probate and so that they can distribute it. Sometimes they can pass a generation. For far too many of us, we can build wealth in a generation and lose it, right? How many family members do you know that didn't leave a will, right? Didn't have the right structure, put their name on a deed, which is the worst thing you can do because then your cost basis is the original cost basis of whoever bought that house. So you're going to pay more in capital gains. I won't get into that technically. Non-home real estate. Why non-home real estate? Because real estate is one of the few investments that you can make that you can not only get appreciation, you can not only get income, but you can also write off the depreciation and amortization from that income. So that income that you're getting, you're not paying a lot in taxes. Here's the other thing. For many, you can see insurance is the one thing that we're invested in more than the wealthy. Because the wealthy use insurance as an estate planning tool, we use insurance as investments, and it simply doesn't grow as rapidly. So the only thing I want you to see is, the other thing I want you to see is that the principal residences is only 10% of the wealth of the wealthy, whereas for most of us, it's 59%. Look at the difference. The wealthy, total debt, only 5% of their overall assets were versus 75% for the 9%. So looking at this chart, what does it tell you? You can put it in the chat as well. Hi, Shanae, and hi, Denise. Thanks for joining. What does this tell you? You can unmute or put it in the chat.
I was going to say it's important to get involved in these early stage startups. I'm looking at a couple myself, and just how we are, as some some of the advisors give some advice that perhaps may increase their, share or what have you,
Yeah.
and just got a lot of. I mean, I'm hearing the life insurance thing. Of course, I heard real estate, but I sort of knew that that wasn't, my own, corporate real estate I'm hearing is stronger. So it's just being knowledgeable. And this is very helpful as to how people are making investments and growing them.
Yeah. So the most important thing I want you to get from this chart is that you've got to turn your income into assets, right? So the way the wealthy get wealthy is through investment, business equity, financial securities, stocks and mutual funds, non-home real estate. And the other thing is, like, if you invest in an early stage startup, and there's a liquidity event, many times there's no tax due on that capital gain. So, I just want you to understand, I asked the question earlier, what is your biggest expense? Your biggest expense is taxes. Like, if you look at your pay stub, what you're going to see is that and so when you can learn tax advantage strategies, that's really how you get ahead. And so let me just talk about what are some tax advantage strategies for a first generation high earner, right? The first thing is taking advantage of all your tax advantaged accounts through your employer. I mean, I know a lot of people, like to say, oh, you should, start your own business. And I get that. But many of you are standing 10 feet away from gold, right? So you want to put the maximum that you can in your traditional or Roth style IRA. After you do that, then you can contribute, I think it just went up to 7,000 to a regular IRA. So if you have a 401k plan, then a lot of times the only thing you could do is a traditional IRA, but then you can do what's called a Roth IRA, convert that to a Roth IRA, and then when the money comes out, you're not going to pay taxes of it. Some of you have additional deferred compensation programs. And those deferred compensation programs allow you to put in above and beyond what this amount is. If you have children, you really need to be thinking about putting the maximum in a 529 plan. Because 529 plans, some people don't know that. They can not only be used for college, but they can be used for elementary, high school. The next thing is after-tax IRA contributions to subsequently be Roth converted. So why do I keep saying backdoor Roths, right? You want to move some of your money into an account where when you retire, every dime is not going to be taxed as taxable income. This is what the wealthy do. And then they go even further to do a deferred mega backdoor tax-free Roth, where 401k contributions can be converted to a Roth. And for some of you with your employers, you actually have the ability to do a Roth or a regular. Which one should you do? It depends. And so there's some calculators out there that'll show you how to do that. Now, the most important thing, guys, is the reason you want to build an investment portfolio outside of your 401k. Is that Shanae? Hey, am I saying that right? Yeah, it's good to see your face.
Hey,
hey. So one of the reasons in WealthyU that we teach you how to build a stock portfolio is because capital gains are taxed much lower, right? So that's why Bill Gates and all of them have lower taxes, because most of their money is coming in the form of capital gains. So let's say you build a portfolio. Let's say you put 100,000 in a portfolio, right? And then let's say you sell off 50,000 in terms of a capital gain, like that money grew and now you're going to sell it off as capital gain. It's taxed at 15%, right? And so that's how, whereas we're getting taxed at 25%. Then and only then do you want to look at non-qualified deferred annuities. You want to take care of all these options, because the one thing about annuities is they have mortality expense, they have a lot more expenses, and typically the investments inside of that annuities are not high performers, right? So this is some things that you can implement right now. And in WealthyU, we call it analyze, optimize, maximize, right? Like you already have a lot of what you need. You just need to learn how to accelerate the financial growth. And so, like, how did Belinda get to $1 million? Well, so this is 20 years, right? So first, maximum 401k, you're over 50 and you're putting in $30,000 a year. You can get to $1 million in 20 years. Actually, in a lot of the things that we show you in WealthyU, this is using an 8% compounded return. But if you just look at the S&P 500 now, you see over the past decade, it's been more like 14 or 15%, right? So let's say you're just making the maximum contribution of 22.5. I think it's 23 now. In 20 years, you can still get to $1 million, right? Or let's say, well, Deb, I got a lot of different obligations. $1,000 a month. That's $250 a week, right? You can still get to a $500,000. The key is to get started, right? So you do a lot of those tax advantage strategies that I talked about. You accelerate your financial growth. You invest it in investments that are going to grow more rapidly. And that's how you get to $1 million. Now, this is a really interesting story. So I met Tanil. She was in her mid-20s. She had no prior investment knowledge. She had low returns on her investments and didn't understand why her investments weren't growing. So after joining WealthyU, she analyzed, optimized, and maximized her 401k options. She also had an employee stock purchase program, meaning if you're with a public company, typically you can invest in their stock and at a discount, right? So in many cases, you're buying it at a discount and you're already getting a return. She established a health savings account, and a health savings account allows you to put, for one person, $3,600. If you're a couple, it allows you to put $7,200. But you can use that account, you can invest in it, and then when you retire, and the money can grow. If you want to use it if you use it for medical expenses, there are no taxes, there's no tax consequences. But then when you retire, and this is something that just changed, you can take that money out tax-free, right? So the point I'm making is all these little things add up, and the key is to just get started, right? So I got another text. This actually was a Facebook post. Well, I have always been a saver and invested in my retirement fund since the age of 21. I wasn't always clear on how to perform a fundamental analysis of a company. You started working with me in 2015, which I can't believe I've been doing this as long as I have. But I think she started with me when I first started coaching. Thanks in large part to your coaching, I reached the 7-figure mark at a relatively young. There are still areas where I can tighten the belt, but I want to enjoy the journey along the way. And I'm a big believer in that, right? Like, you got to live and you got to invest, and you can do both. Long story short, I'm forever grateful for the work you do and how, but no, I want to read this because My mom and I are headed to the Great Migration in the Masai Mara region of Kenya in July and August with 2 business class seats on Qatar Airlines. I am forever grateful for the work you do and how it has played a positive impact on my life and investment accounts. I am on track to have multi-7-figure portfolio before my 50th birthday, which is in 6 years. Now, the point I want to make is that's the point of money, right? Like your ability to take your mom on a I swore if the flight is over 5 hours, I gotta have business class or I ain't going, right? It's just too much. And so wealth is not a function of just accumulating things, right? Wealth gives you freedom, the freedom to choose, the freedom to take opportunities and take advantage of opportunities and create experiences. And so this is the blueprint, right? The first thing is there are 3 levels, right? Financial awakening, wealth acceleration, and legacy wealth creator. This is the journey that women take in WealthyU. The first thing is shifting from that middle class or earner mindset to wealth mindset. And so the first thing we do here is we show you what your wealth gap is. Like, where are you today and what do you need to do to accelerate and close that wealth gap? And then once you know that, we actually have a calculator that does that. Then we help you see what your financial freedom factor is. Like, what is the number you need to be able to say, you know what, I'm out. And then we create your 7-figure blueprint. Now, once you have that, then the next thing you got to learn is how to increase your investment performance. And so what we found is many people are saving, right? Like not investing. And that's a direct correlation between just being risk averse. And because you aren't sure about how to invest, then you have some reluctance. And so in WealthyU, what you do is learn how to analyze, optimize, and maximize your investments. You learn how to analyze and research mutual funds and analyze and research stocks so you can build a portfolio and take what we call calculated risk. And so the goal is for you to go from average returns, right? And we've seen people who've had like 3% returns, -3% returns in their 401k. And what that means is your money isn't growing, right? So a lot of times you're putting this money in and you're saying, oh, it's going up. But that's a function of the money you're putting in, right? Just using the rule of 72. If you can increase the returns on your portfolio to 10%, divide 10% into 72 and your money's doubling every 7 years, right? So you wonder how Belinda and how Tennille, and I've got, we have a member that came in and she had been trying to get to 7 figures, And it was all there, it's just that the investment she was in were terrible. And within 6 months, she hit over 7 figures. And it was simple. Now, let me just say this, guys. I'm gonna preface this. The market has been in our favor, okay? Like in COVID, it was at 20,000. Now it's at 40,000. So that does work in your favor. But the key is if you're not positioned in the right investments, you're not going to be able to take advantage of it, right? So the next thing is to accelerate and to identify what your investment levers are. And they're different for everybody, right? They're different for everybody. Like some of you could have a 401k plan that has some really good investments in it. Some of you could have assets that are where you left an employer and then you can move it to something and expand what your options are, right? Some of you do have a health savings account. So it's just really understanding what is your investment opportunity levers. And levers, what do they do when they pull it? They make you go further faster. And so that is the point. Like my frustration is that I've seen women who they would have double the amount of investments if they had been positioned correctly and they understood what their investment levers are. So that's wealth acceleration. And so the next level is legacy wealth creator. And that's why where you expand just outside of mutual funds and you learn how to invest in stocks. You learn how to evaluate real estate investments. You learn high net worth strategies if you're a accredited investor, and then how you can invest in early stage with the goal of you creating legacy wealth. But the point of what we do is it's really more than money. The most important thing you learn in WealthyU is the knowledge we give you. So that's the knowledge no one can ever take away from you. And so, what we found is there's so much shame because you feel like, oh, I should know this. Where would you learn it? Right? Like, did you learn this in your formal education? Did you get a class that taught you how to invest? No. And so the point of it is when you get access to the knowledge that you need, everything changes. So I told you all going to get a gift. So you're all going to get an ebook of my wealth secrets, which just has some amazing stories of women who, once they applied the blueprint, it's just magical what could happen. And this book I'm most proud of because these are actual women, right? Who went through the program and applied the concept. And if they can do it, you can do it too. So all you need is access to a transformational wealth blueprint that provides access to high net worth strategies specifically for first generation high earners. And so if you're ready to apply this, one of the other gifts that I want to give is to just schedule a wealth ignition session with me. If you want to figure out like what is your 7-figure blueprint, what is your gap, just take a picture of take your camera and you can, that goes to a calendar and we can simply chat about, and I can give you an overview of, what are the things that you need to focus on. And basically what we're going to do is figure out what your wealth gap is, uh, figure out what your financial freedom factor is, and then create your 7-figure wealth blueprint. And we do that with a calculator, right? One of the things you'll find about me is I like numbers, right? Like I don't like people just pulling stuff out of a hat. I know, and the point is it's customization, right? It's like your situation is different from everybody else's, right? So I know people like to say there's a cookie cutter. There's not. Now, the Legacy Wealth Blueprint is a framework, okay? But that framework, when it's applied to your situation. And so with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. What did you think? Like, out of all the things that I said today in this presentation, what do you think could have the greatest impact?
So I think certainly diversifying the strategies would help. Have some of those, but it was really interesting to sort of get a visual or understanding of which ones grow faster. So that's a major thing for me.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing is many of you are standing 10 feet away from gold, right? But do you feel like, man, I should be further ahead? I've been working this long. I've been doing all the things they said I was supposed to do. How come I'm not further? A lot of times it's just a function of optimizing what you already have. So thank you for that, Latara. How about you, Shanae?
Yeah, I definitely, that was one of the things that I wrote down, what she just said. Thank you. Oh, and thank you for this presentation too. The other, for me, it's also about tax strategy. So to build and build, and especially when you want to have a legacy, and we're speaking of estates and trusts, is, oh my gosh, what about taxes, right? How much, what are the tax advantages? And that's really something. So in addition to wealth and legacy building, that's a big thing for me right now, is trying to understand how this plays out with taxes. And there's so much information going on now, trying to decipher what's reputable and accurate, and it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, here's all I'm gonna say is like I know I have a deep knowledge of investments, but in a Wealthy You, I bring in a wealth strategist and she is amazing. True story. Was talking to a member and she had told me what she had done, and I was like, oh my God, she's gonna end up paying about $100,000 in taxes because of what she did, right? So I was like, nah, let me call my girl. So I called my wealth strategist. She's a tax attorney. She goes up against the IRS and gets millions from her clients. But I'll be honest with you, I didn't know she had a tax reduction kind of strategy practice. Guess how much she paid? $3,000. Girl, I was running around the room.
Wow.
And that's just a function of like, so that's the other thing, ladies. You got to build a team.
Mm-hmm,
And the way
mm-hmm.
you're going to build a team is you're going to look at what you need proof,
Right.
right? So the first thing you're going to do when you hire somebody is you're going to say, hey, can you give me a referral? Can you give me 3 of your clients that I can talk to? Okay. And because that's very important. So then we have, we do real estate, right? So I don't have a deep knowledge of real estate. So we have, she now has a venture capital firm now, but she has an extensive portfolio. So that's who I want to teach my people. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we just had 2 um, presentations from 2 venture capital funds. So I bring people in. Of course, I question them. And I have questions. I make sure my folks have questions. And then, if it's something that you feel is going to be positioned for your portfolio and make sense, then that's how you make those opportunities. But the only way you can make a great decision is if you understand it, right?
Right.
And you have knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's most important. How about you, Denise? What was your biggest takeaway? If you can go on audio.
First, thank you for the presentation. It was great. I took some screenshots along the way.
Excellent.
Excuse me, I'm not on camera. I'm actually down in the Caribbean and the signal is not the strongest. So I think staying off camera will help me um,
Yeah,
stay,
it
stay
will. It
connected a little
will.
longer.
Oh, I
Hmm.
wish I was in the Caribbean. So what was your takeaway? What could make the biggest impact?
I mean, this was a great reminder. I'm having worked for financial service firms and a big four accounting firm. I've heard a lot of these strategies. The biggest takeaway definitely is the tax strategies. I need to do that better. I'm planning for early retirement, so just getting things in order. I love that you just said you need a team. You definitely do, because I spoke to a financial consultant and he couldn't really give me too much information on tax implications for the things that I have planned for the future. So now I have to think about
Right.
an
And
account in
so
Mhm.
that that um that really integrates right with your investments. And I'll be honest with you, like I have clients who have me on speed dial where I'm actually on with their advisors, right? And just, kind of, okay, what are you proposing? And then, then we get off and then we talk about what they are proposing, right? Because the most important thing you can do is be able to make a confident decision. Listen, in WealthyU, our motto is, we never lose. We either win or we learn, right? Nelson Mandela quote. So I'll be honest with you, the women that have gone the further, the fastest, execute, right? They apply what they learn and then they execute, and then they execute, and then they execute. And I think, you know, when I look at our WealthyU community, so I have a community, and for every one of those levels you saw, there's a program, right? So if you're just going for your first 6 figures, there's a program. If you're running for your first 7 figures, there's a program. That program needs to be different because you're at a different level, right? And then if you already got 7 figures and beyond, then we need a different strategy, right? And so the importance of that is that the most important thing is community, right? Is that you're around other like-minded women, because like we have skill building sessions going on, like analyzing and researching stocks once a month, analyzing and researching mutual funds. And like initially you go on and you don't know what we're talking about, right? And then you learn. And so then you'll see somebody else come in and they're like, yeah, I got my sheet all filled out. You know, I do strategic advisory. One of my programs has one-on-one, right? But some is in a group. So in the group, when you come in and you see, man, I started with her and she's already got her, you know, her thing analyzed and optimized, it just encourages you, right? Because in WealthyU, we say you can never get behind because everybody's starting from a different place, right? And so the whole goal is there not being any shame attached to something that you're just learning, okay? That's the key, is that you're supported, and that, you know, the goal of WealthyU, keep it moving, right? We judge our results on your progress. And so that's why those screenshots are so important, proof, right? Because I want you to see, those are people that started out just where you were. So, okay, we're right at 152. If any of you want to take advantage of the one-on-one session, there's no cost for it. If you just take a picture of that QR code with your phone, or the link is on the top as well. And thanks, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me this afternoon. I hope this was of value to you. If there's any way we can be of assistance, just reach out.
Thank
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.